Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Welcome back. It is exactly 20 after 8 o'clock South African time. We're crossing over to Jenin in Palestine, and we're going to be talking to Osama Nazzal. He is a Jenin-based journalist, and he's going to be giving us an update on exactly what is happening in that part of the world. And it ain't good news at all. We understand that the illegal occupiers have destroyed about 70% of the streets and infrastructure in Jenin city in the northern West Bank during its ongoing military offensive for the fourth consecutive day. And of course, the municipality in Jenin has in fact confirmed the situation. And I think by now the situation might be much, much worse. Osama Nazzal, Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program. And you are here to give us an update of this very horrendous situation.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you very much for having me. Yes, the situation is very horrendous as the Israeli occupation forces have been continuing their aggression against the Palestinian citizens of Jenin city, its refugee camp, and some nearby villages for the sixth day in a row, killing more than 18 people and injuring dozens others, in addition to turning the city of Jenin and its refugee camp to a small Gaza. The people of Jenin and in the West Bank call Jenin today small Gaza because of the destruction that the Israeli occupation forces inflicted on the city, destroying many houses for the citizens and destroying the electricity, the water, and the communications networks, in addition to wrecking almost all of the roads and the markets of the city, preventing any aspect of normal life. The Israeli occupation forces at the same time surrounding the governmental hospital, which is the only major hospital in Jenin city, and it provides services also to the nearby villages, allowing no people to have access to the hospital before searching and before detecting even the ambulances that carry patients. The Israeli occupation, of course, are using the drones and the Apache helicopters in attacking the Palestinians in the city and the refugee camp. And just last night, they expanded their aggression against the nearby villages like Kufradan and Silit al Hartiya, two small villages to the north of the city of Jenin, killing three people in these two villages, bringing the number of the Palestinians killed in Jenin to 18 and to 28 in the rest of the occupied Palestinian territory, I mean the West Bank. I'm not talking about the crimes in Gaza, as Israel killed today morning 40 Palestinians in Gaza. That is the situation right now in Jenin.
It wasn't expected, or I think, do you think that we were living under false pretenses to think that these genocidal occupiers would target Jenin in the West Bank and the West Bank, so to speak? At the start of this genocide, I think the whole world just assumed that everything, all destruction and all the horrors would be perpetrated in Gaza, but they seem to be moving. Probably the whole intent is to take over all of Palestine, destroy it completely, get rid of the Palestinian people, and that seems to be their master plan, and then occupy Palestine as a whole. Having said that, we also know that water has been cut off from 80% of the city of Jenin, and the camp, obviously the camps around in Jenin, due to this destruction of networks, and sadly, the inability of technical teams to reach these networks and to redirect the water to other areas.
Yes, that is the Israeli occupation regime plan, which targets not only Gaza, but it started with Gaza. It targets every part of the occupied Palestinian territory, and we don't want to forget that the Israeli occupation and the Zionist religious Israeli movement don't recognize the right of the Palestinian people to exist in the occupied West Bank because they don't call it occupied territory or West Bank. They call it Judah and Samaria. They believe that the state of Israel should be established in the heart of the West Bank, mainly in Jerusalem and Hebron and the rest of the occupied West Bank. So this Israeli aggression and military escalation against Jenin and the north of the West Bank in general comes within the context of this plan that the Israeli Minister of Finance, Smotrich, who knows for his extremism and for his calls for pushing out the Palestinians from their homeland, declared on the second day of the establishment of the current extremist rightist Israeli government. They believe that the West Bank, in particular, should be allocated and dedicated to building more settlements and bringing more Zionist settlers to live in a place of the indigenous people of the Palestinians. Today, we are not talking about apartheid. I think months ago it was possible to talk about Israel apartheid, but what happens today and how we see things, mainly in Jenin, where I live, is ethnic cleansing and genocide and not only apartheid. Israel is encouraged to go ahead with this plan because of the silence of the so called international community and the unlimited support that it keeps receiving, mainly from the American administration, in terms of arms and money, and at the same time, support from some Western governments. And the more dangerous thing is the silence by the Arab governments and the Islamic nation. We hear condemnations, people express their sympathy to the Palestinians, but there are no actions taken on the ground to stop this Israeli plan. And we see that the Israeli ambassadors are still having nice nights in some Arab capitals until now.
Osama, we know that the horrors of Gaza are totally unimaginable. Do you think that Jenin is going to follow suit? You are based in Jenin. How safe do you feel? I've also just picked up that, and this obviously is going to have a very huge impact on food supply for the people in Jenin, that the genocidal forces have burned parts of the central vegetable market in the city, and initial estimates of the damage to the market and its commercial shops indicate that they have suffered severe damage, in addition to the destruction of hundreds of homes and vehicles. That must really be a very, very gloomy picture indeed, and a huge impact on the people of Jenin.
Yes, that is a gloomy picture. As you said, the gloomy picture that the Israeli occupation minister of foreign affairs it drew before the start of this aggression on Jenin. He said that the Palestinians must be forced out of their houses and their cities in the north of the occupied West Bank. Now, what Israel is doing is moving the model of Gaza to Jenin. If you go to Jenin, and it is not easy for anybody to go to Jenin now because of the Israeli military forces deployment in every part of the city, all the roads are not only destroyed, but they are dug into 2 meters depth, according to reports from the city. The Israeli forces prevent the movement and the mobility of the Palestinian medical teams and the Palestinian ambulances, and they are applying the techniques and the methods of killing and murder that they use against our people in Gaza. Just today morning, the Palestinian Red Crescent Committee announced that they received a body of a Palestinian citizen in his 50s from the Israeli forces. They received him dead, of course, and with the scars of torture on the different parts of his body. So, as Israel detains the Palestinians in Gaza and tortures them to death, this what happened with this Palestinian citizen in Jenin last night. So we are talking about the same policy and we are talking about the same paradigm that Israel is applying to Gaza and to Jenin. And I think that Jenin is just a starting point to
Absolutely.
transfer to other Palestinian cities in the West Bank because Israel has one plan: settlements, Zionist settlements everywhere in the West Bank, leaving no opportunity of life for the indigenous citizens of the occupied Palestinian territory. This is what Israel is working on, and this is what Israel is implementing and will continue as long as we have this political position from the Arab governments and the international community in general.
Osama, then finally, let's talk about the aid. We do know that a couple of months ago there was lots of aid trucks that were stuck at the Rafah border, and the occupiers, the genocidal occupiers, refused to allow the aid to go through. The Gazans, the majority of them probably starved to death, so to speak. Lots of the children are absolutely and utterly malnourished. What is the situation like in the West Bank and particularly in Jenin now that it seems that they're targeting Jenin?
Yeah, the situation in the West Bank is not easy because this aggression has not started 6 days ago only. The West Bank has been going through different and heinous Israeli incursions and Israeli practices of murder for the last 3 years, but the Israeli aggression intensified against the West Bank after the 7th of October, and now it is at its peak these days, mainly in the northern part of the occupied West Bank. To have aid into the besieged people of Jenin is not an easy task, and we saw last night how the people from the nearby villages collected some bread and some aid and loaded an ambulance with the bread. But the Israeli forces did not allow that ambulance to get into the city and distribute the bread to the people who are in need there. So, this Israeli behavior that we have been watching and suffering from in Gaza for the last 11 months is fully applied here in the occupied West Bank. The people in Jenin, the citizens who were forcibly evacuated from their houses, mainly from the eastern neighborhood of the city and from the refugee camp, telling stories of the suffering of the people in the city as they have no access to food, to water, to medical supplies. And the Israeli snipers are mounting the high buildings of the city and they shoot at any moving object. Some people said that even if you open the window of your house or you open the door of your house, the Israeli snipers will shoot at you and injure or kill you. So the situation is not easy, and I can say that Jenin city and its people are left alone now, facing the crimes of the Israeli occupation, as no humanitarian aid organizations are present until this moment in the region. And the people, the international community, let me say, and the international governments did not pay the required attention to what's happening to the people of Jenin up to this moment. Israel is using all the military gear that it has, the latest weapons that it gets from the American administration, and employ these weapons against the defenseless people of Jenin. People might talk about the Palestinian resistance in Jenin, but people should understand that the Palestinian resistance are a group of young men with very light weapons like rifles that can't be compared to the minimum of what the Israeli occupation forces have of weaponry and military machines.
Okay, I'm going to end off with something that I'm going to share with you, and I'm kind of wondering if you believe it gives the Palestinian people hope, or is it just talk, 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 and more talk and no action from the international community? It says here that in a landmark opinion on July the 19th, the ICJ um, declared Israel's decade-long occupation of Palestine land unlawful and demanded the evacuation of all settlements in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. Clearly, that hasn't happened. Clearly, the genocidal occupiers have ignored that because they believe they are untouchable.
Yeah, the Palestinian people never have hope in the resolutions of the international community because the United Nations, and it's different, but it's issued more than 750 resolutions vis-a-vis the Palestinian cause, and no one resolution was implemented since the start of the Israeli occupation. So all that we hear as Palestinians from the so-called international community not only talks but also blabbering and gibberish and much cry but no wall at all. While this doesn't mean that the Palestinians have no hope, the Palestinians have no hope because they know that they have their friends and their brothers, the public, the people around the world who take to the streets and show solidarity with the people of Palestine every day. The people who collect and provide aid to the Palestinian people in the West Bank and Gaza. And the Palestinian people have hope because they know that they have the resilience and steadfastness, and they have been fighting against the Israeli occupation since the start of this occupation 1948, and Israel and its supporters, mainly the Americans, failed to break the will of the Palestinian people. And that's why, and because of this will, the people of Palestine continue to fight and continue to resist, refusing any form of acceptance of the occupation and any form of surrender. The Palestinians in Jenin who talk to the media every day say no white flags today. The Palestinians have made their decision to live in freedom, security, and peace, or to continue to resist until the Israeli occupation uh, accepts to end its occupation of Palestine and allow the Palestinians to enjoy all their rights as any other free nation living in this world. And you're speaking from South Africa, and South Africa is the example of resilience and resistance that the Palestinian people follow through.
And that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed. Allah keep one and all safe. And we do accept that this is all part of Allah's master plan. But inshallah, this horror, this genocide will end sooner rather than later. Osama Nazzal, journalist based in Jenin, thank you indeed for your update. Go well. Keep
Thank
safe. Salaam alaikum to you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you. Thank you.
It is exactly 8:38 a.m. News and views moving along, and we are going to now talk with Musinguzi Good Luck Ronald. He's going to talk to us about the situation, another very dire situation, this time around in Africa, DRC. Sadly, this situation hasn't been given enough coverage in the news, mainstream news all around the world. So, inshallah, we are going to highlight the plight of the people in the DRC.